In the history of Western philosophy, there is an image that humanity will never forget. A man who was once a slave, his limbs thin and frail, living in poverty and oppression, yet whose mind shone like a torch, guiding generations to come. His name was Epictetus. His life stands as a powerful testament that true strength does not reside in circumstances, nor in power or wealth, but in the way one chooses to respond to every situation. The Stoics saw in him the embodiment of a fundamental truth. We cannot command the wind to blow in our favor, but we can choose how to set our sails. And it is in that choice that human freedom is discovered. Epictetus was born into slavery, a fate that anyone would consider dark and hopeless. He could not decide where he was born, could not control the will of his master, and could not escape the pain of chains. Yet he chose to respond differently. Instead of resentment, he cultivated observation. Instead of tears, he nurtured mastery over his mind. From observation and restraint, he discovered the truth. Humans are not defeated by misfortune, but by how they respond to it. This was the lesson Epictetus left to humanity. Circumstances are not the enemy. The mind is the true battlefield. How many times in our lives have we lost peace over a harsh word, a contemptuous glance, or an event beyond our control? We become angry, we blame, we sink into despair. But if we pause and remember Epictetus's words, we see, none of them can harm us unless we allow it. It is our response that determines our emotions, that determines our strength. Like a flame encountering the wind, the weak are extinguished by it. The strong use it to burn brighter. Human strength lies not in avoiding the wind, but in choosing how to blaze. In the records that remain, Epictetus constantly emphasized the distinction between what we control and what we do not. What we do not control includes illness, death, wealth, poverty, and the judgments of others. What we do control is our own reaction. Confuse the two, and suffering is inevitable. Recognize the difference, and liberation is possible. The Stoics called this the art of living. Focus on what belongs to you, and let go of what does not. Epictetus did not merely teach this. He lived it, day after day, hour after hour, even while still a slave. Imagine a bird trapped in a cage. It cannot choose its space. It cannot choose its food. It cannot choose its fate. But it can choose how to sing. A sorrowful song turns the iron bars into a prison. A song of freedom transforms the cage into a stage. Epictetus was that bird, and he taught us that true freedom is not in breaking chains, but in singing within them. That is the power of response, the power that allows even a slave to become a master to humanity. In the philosophy of Epictetus, the world is like a grand theater. He taught that we cannot choose the role we are given, but we can choose how to perform it. Some are cast as kings, some as peasants, some as slaves. Yet the value of life does not reside in the role itself, but in how we play it. A peasant can live with greatness if he maintains his dignity, while a king can live in mediocrity if he is consumed by desire. Epictetus asserted that the only thing truly ours is our will and our response, and it is this that determines whether a life is noble or ignoble. He would teach his students that if someone insults you, you must ask yourself, are you harmed by the words themselves, or by the way you choose to receive them? Words carry no inherent power. They only wound when you allow them to enter your mind. Like an arrow shot, but not yet hitting its mark, it can only harm if you expose yourself to it. This lesson may seem simple, but in practice, it grants immense freedom. No critique can chain you. No gaze can disturb your peace. In the modern world, where social media overflows with judgment and comparison, Epictetus's lesson is more vital than ever. How many have lost joy to a cruel comment? How many have been swayed by fleeting praise or criticism? Epictetus would say, "Do not give others dominion over your emotions. Keep them in your own hands. Choose your response in a way that nourishes your soul. If someone seeks to humiliate you, smile, and remember that their words reflect their nature, not your worth. If you can remain serene in such moments, you become stronger than the most powerful of rulers." There is a story of Epictetus observing a student enraged by insult. He gently said, "You have allowed that person to win twice. Once, when they offended you, and again when you let anger consume you. If you maintain composure, they only win once. But when you rage, they win both times." This vividly illustrates the Stoic philosophy. The true enemy is not the one who offends, but the loss of control in your own soul. How you choose to respond ultimately decides who triumphs in that invisible battle. Epictetus often used the image of fire to teach. He said, "Events are like pieces of wood thrown into the flame. The weak let the fuel extinguish them. The strong use it to burn brighter." When life presents difficulties, when challenges are thrown at you, remember that they are merely fuel. Your choice of response determines whether you smolder or blaze. Epictetus did not promise an easy life, but he showed a path. Choose to transform suffering into strength, failure into lessons, and adversity into a fire that illuminates your entire existence. Epictetus was not merely a philosopher sitting in a classroom. He was a man who had truly endured suffering. He knew what it meant to be oppressed, to lose freedom, to be treated with contempt. From within that darkness, he forged a radiant light of thought. If someone who had once been shackled could choose to respond with calm and wisdom, then none of us can claim powerlessness in the face of circumstance. This is what makes his philosophy compelling. It is not persuasive because it reads beautifully on paper, but because it is proven by the harsh reality of his own life. He often reminded his students, "Do not wish for events to unfold as you desire, but desire them to unfold as they are." This is not a call to resignation, but a lesson in how to respond. When we cannot control the events themselves, we can choose to embrace them as part of nature. Like a sailor accepting winds blowing from many directions, yet adjusting the sails accordingly. When we learn to flow with the currents of the universe, we are no longer hapless victims being tossed about, but wise navigators using the wind to reach our destination. Every day, we encounter things beyond our control. A sudden rainstorm, an illness, a betrayal, a loss. We can lament, curse fate, and become exhausted. Or we can choose a different response. Accept reality, keep our minds steady, and seek opportunity in adversity. This is the power Epictetus sought to impart. No reaction can erase the event, but the right reaction can transform it into a lesson. And when we turn every suffering into insight, our life gradually becomes a journey of wisdom rather than a chain of tragedies. He also emphasized the distinction between body and mind. The body can be shackled, injured, or struck by illness, but the mind is bound only when we allow it to be. A person imprisoned in a dungeon can remain free if they keep their mind serene. Conversely, one living in a palace can be enslaved if they let desire, fear, and anger govern them. It is the way we choose to respond that determines whether we are free or enslaved. This is why Epictetus could rise from the state of a slave to become a spiritual master, even for kings. Perhaps that is why his students, from ordinary people to leaders, viewed him as a guiding lighthouse. He did not teach them how to change the world, but how to change themselves. And when a person changes their response, their entire world transforms. Misfortune becomes resilience. Failure becomes a lesson. Loss becomes growth. This is the quiet, enduring power that defines the true value of life, the ability to choose one's response. In Epictetus's view, the universe is not humanity's enemy. It simply exists, with its fluctuations, losses, successes, and failures. To resist it with resentment is only to exhaust oneself. But to choose a response of acceptance is to grow stronger. Like a person walking in the rain, one can curse the storm and shiver in the cold, or one can open their heart and discover freshness in every drop. Epictetus advises us to choose responses that expand the soul rather than shrink it, for it is precisely this choice that shapes human dignity. He also emphasized that happiness does not come from avoiding difficulties, but from choosing the right response to them. When we regard challenges as opportunities for growth, every event becomes an exercise for the soul. A soldier becomes brave only by stepping onto the battlefield. A philosopher matures only by facing adversity. If we respond with steadiness instead of complaint, all suffering becomes fuel to ignite the mind brighter. This is why Epictetus makes no promises of an easy life, but gives us the tools to master it. In daily life, we encounter countless minor disturbances that shake our minds: an insensitive word, a delay, an injustice. Epictetus teaches that these are opportunities for practice. Instead of letting anger arise, try to remain calm. Instead of blaming, try to accept. Every time we choose to respond wisely, we train our mind. Gradually, this response becomes instinctive. At that point, no circumstance can easily unsettle us, for we have transformed composure into a constant source of strength. A crucial point Epictetus always emphasized: people suffer not because of events themselves, but because of how we interpret them. Two people can experience the same event, but their reactions differ, and thus their fates differ. One sees failure as humiliation and lives in bitterness. Another sees failure as a lesson, grows, and moves forward. The origin of happiness or suffering does not lie in the event, but in the response. When we change how we respond, we not only change our mood, but we change our life. Epictetus believed that true freedom begins the moment we recognize we have the right to choose our response. No one can take that right from us unless we hand it over. Others may harm our body, but cannot touch our spirit unless we permit it. They may take our possessions, but cannot take our dignity if we hold it firm. True power, therefore, does not reside in the authority of others, but in the silent decision within ourselves. How will I respond? And as long as we remember this, we are no longer victims of fate, but masters of our own destiny. Observing human life, Epictetus realized that most suffering stems from the confusion between what we can control and what we cannot. We often waste energy on matters beyond our reach: the weather, fate, the attitudes of others. We get angry because of the rain, disappointed because someone does not act as we wish, anxious over events that have not yet occurred. But Epictetus reminds us, none of these things belong to us. The only thing that truly belongs to us is our response. If we learn to focus our energy on what we can control, we find much greater serenity. This is the first step toward reclaiming inner freedom. In one of his lessons, he asked his students, "If someone calls you a fool, does that make you a fool?" The class laughed. Epictetus continued, "Then why get angry? If the words are true, Learn and correct yourself. If they are false, there is no reason to be upset. This lesson is simple, yet profound. We often overreact, giving power to meaningless words. But when we are awake to reality, we recognize that our value does not depend on praise or criticism. True strength lies in choosing responses that help us grow, rather than responses that make us slaves to emotion. Today's society is no different. A negative comment on social media can rob someone of sleep. An indifferent glance can shatter self-esteem. But Epictetus would remind us, these are merely external echoes. They have power only if we open our minds and invite them in. If we choose to close the door and maintain calm, they are no more than a breeze gliding across a still lake. Response is the key. And when we choose to respond with silence, with a smile, with equanimity, those arrows fall harmless. That is freedom no power can grant or take away. A distinctive point in Epictetus's philosophy is his constant reminder that inner discipline is more important than anything else. To respond wisely, one must train daily. Just as muscles need exercise to grow strong, the mind must be cultivated to remain steady. Every time we choose not to get angry, we are practicing. Every time we accept adversity instead of complaining, we are practicing. Gradually, this steadiness becomes our nature. And when nature is formed, wise responses are no longer an effort, but a natural reflex. Epictetus taught his students in this way, and he wanted the world to understand that everyone possesses the same power in choosing how to respond. One does not need to be a king, nor a philosopher. Anyone can master themselves. A poor mother can respond with love instead of bitterness. A laborer can respond with patience instead of despair. A child can learn to respond with courage instead of fear. It is in these responses that humanity discovers dignity. And when dignity is present, life becomes worth living, no matter the circumstances. Epictetus often emphasized that true freedom does not lie outside, but within. A nation may lose its territory, a person may lose their possessions, but they only truly lose freedom when they surrender their soul to fear and anger. He once said that even an emperor can be a slave if governed by desire and ambition. Conversely, a slave can be free if they choose to respond with wisdom and equanimity. This turns conventional notions upside down. Power does not determine freedom. The ability to master one's response to the world does. In a society full of upheaval like ours today, this lesson remains as relevant as ever. We cannot control the economy, prevent global crises, or change the way others think of us. But we can choose how to respond, with calm, with faith, with compassion. It is this choice that sets us apart. When everyone panics, the calm become anchors. When everyone despairs, those who hold on to trust become lights. This is why Epictetus always advised starting within the mind, for every true strength originates there. An intriguing aspect of his teaching is that he never denies pain. He does not instruct us to pretend that loss does not exist, or that we will never feel sorrow. Epictetus simply teaches that we have the right to choose our response to suffering. We can let it crush us, or we can use it as a stepping stone. We can let loss become an unhealing wound, or transform it into memories that nourish compassion. It is this choice that turns pain into a teacher. And once we learn from it, suffering ceases to be an enemy and becomes a companion guiding our growth. In Epictetus' philosophy, each day is a training ground. He advised his students not to wait for great adversity to learn how to respond, but to start with small matters. When someone jostles you, choose calm. When the weather is harsh, choose acceptance. When a plan fails, Choose patience. These small choices cultivate great strength. Like a martial artist practicing each strike and each fall, one becomes truly resilient only upon entering the arena. Humans are no different. Only by learning to choose responses in small matters can we gain the wisdom to respond rightly to great events. Epictetus left few written works of his own, but his lectures, recorded by his students, became a priceless treasure for humanity. In them, we see a consistent truth. Everything in life can be lost, except the choice of how to respond. It is this silent power that forms true human strength, and it is a timeless message. Cherish this gift of freedom, train it daily, for if we forget, we become slaves to circumstance. But if we remember and practice, then whether poor or rich, free or imprisoned, we remain the strongest. Looking back at human history, we find clear evidence of Epictetus' teaching. Countless individuals have lived in circumstances that seemed utterly dark, yet by choosing their response, they wrote new chapters in the story of humanity. Prisoners behind bars still sang songs of hope. Scientists ridiculed by their peers continued their relentless pursuit of knowledge. Entire nations under occupation preserved the flame of their culture. All shared one trait. They could not control the events around them, but they chose to respond with dignity and resilience. It was these choices that transformed them into timeless symbols. Epictetus wanted us to understand that human nobility is measured not by circumstances, but by our response to them. A person in poverty who preserves their dignity and faces hardship with steadfastness lives more nobly than the wealthy who sink into greed and resentment. A person with illness who chooses serenity is stronger than the healthy who fear every minor disruption. This is the true measure of value, not what we possess, but how we choose to live in the face of what comes. In life today, each of us has countless opportunities to practice this lesson. When we fail at work, we can choose to lament or to learn and grow. When a relationship ends, we can allow our hearts to harden or let them become more compassionate. When society is unjust, we can react with blind rebellion or strive with intellect and patience. Each choice shapes not only our immediate emotions, but also the path ahead. For this reason, Epictetus considered our responses to be the true power of destiny. He also emphasized that calmness does not mean indifference. Many misunderstand Stoic philosophy as teaching humans to become cold or detached from life. Epictetus showed the opposite. When we master our responses, we gain the real capacity to love and serve. The unrestrained hurt others. The calm respond with compassion. The fearful give up. The courageous act with resolve. Calmness is not insensitivity. It is the foundation for deep love and wise action. For Epictetus, the greatest lessons are not found in lecture halls, but in everyday moments. He wanted his students to see that each day is a series of opportunities to choose their response. When insulted, choose restraint. When praised, choose humility. When facing loss, choose acceptance. When experiencing success, choose gratitude. These seemingly small choices, accumulated over time, forge a person who is strong, free, and at peace. This is the path Epictetus walked, and it is the path he invites humanity to follow, the path of inner strength. Epictetus once likened life to a banquet, where we are merely guests. We cannot decide which dishes are served, nor can we demand the feast to end when we wish. The only thing we can do is conduct ourselves with dignity, receive our portion with gratitude, without greed or resentment, and when it is time to leave, step away lightly. This simple image carries a profound lesson. We cannot control the flow of life, but we can choose our response to live fully within the portion we are given. And when we act as a mindful guest, any life can become sacred. A striking feature of his teaching is the emphasis on the self-mastery of the mind. Epictetus does not promise that the world will be fair, nor does he instruct us to change every injustice. He points only to the one path no one can obstruct, the path of mastering oneself. When we learn to restrain anger, maintain inner peace, and choose wise actions, we claim the most important victory. For the one who masters themselves is the one who cannot be conquered. And this is the power Epictetus wished to leave to humanity. Power not in conquering others, but in conquering oneself. In his dialogues with students, Epictetus often used examples from sports. He said that a fighter does not become strong through easy victories, but through formidable opponents. Life is the same. If we choose the right response to adversity, adversity itself becomes the trainer that shapes us. Every event is an opportunity for practice. An insult is a lesson in restraint. A failure is a lesson in patience. A loss is a lesson in acceptance. When we learn to respond wisely, challenges cease to be enemies. They become rigorous teachers guiding us toward growth. Today, in the rush of modern life, Epictetus's lesson is more necessary than ever. We are easily swept away by work pressures, social media comparisons, and anxieties about the future. Yet, Epictetus would remind us, pause, and remember that your strength lies not in controlling the world, but in controlling yourself. When you respond with calmness, burdens feel lighter. When you respond with gratitude, you feel richer. When you respond with resilience, the path ahead shines clearer, regardless of the storms. Perhaps the deepest lesson from Epictetus is the belief that humans always possess freedom, no matter the circumstances. This freedom is not granted by governments, nor recognized by society. It exists within the mind of each individual. You may be bound, yet your spirit can soar if you choose to respond with wisdom. You may lose all your possessions, yet remain rich if you choose to respond with gratitude. You may face injustice, yet remain steadfast if you choose to respond with dignity. This is Epictetus's secret. True power does not come from the outside, but from the quiet decisions we make in each fleeting moment. When reflecting on the teachings of Epictetus, we realize that our response is the pen that writes our destiny. Events are merely blank sheets, while our reactions decide whether the story becomes a dark portrait or a radiant masterpiece. Some allow a failure to become a full stop, yet others turn it into a comma to continue the narrative. Some let pain become shackles, while others transform it into wings. Epictetus teaches that we need not wait for the world to change to find happiness. We only need to change the way we respond. Once we grasp this truth, we hold the power to create a new story for our own life. One of the enduring strengths of Stoic philosophy lies in its timeless applicability. In Epictetus's era, people endured oppression from wars, plagues, and the injustices of empires. Today, we face pressures from work, competition, and the constant noise of modern society. Yet the essence remains. We are always confronted with circumstances beyond our control. The path remains unchanged. Choose your response wisely. When you feel tense from criticism, remember that your emotions are your choice. When despair arises from failure, remember that the way you perceive it shapes the future. The philosophy of Epictetus never grows old because it reflects an unchanging truth about the human condition. Imagine a world where everyone mastered their responses. There would be no more meaningless quarrels, for no one would need to prove their worth through anger. Hatreds would not linger, for people would forgive rather than retaliate. Paralyzing fears would vanish, for everyone would understand that the future cannot destroy us in this moment. Such a world would be more peaceful, stronger, and profoundly humane. Epictetus may have been a humble philosopher, yet if humanity truly comprehended his teachings, the world could change at its very root. Yet Epictetus never concealed the difficulty of cultivating wise responses. He knew that humans are easily swayed by emotions, easily dictated by circumstances. That is why he emphasized discipline. Practice daily. Do not wait for major crises to test yourself. Remain calm when faced with minor insults. Accept small losses. Be patient with minor obstacles. These daily exercises gradually build inner strength. And when the real storms arrive, one has the courage and resilience to stand firm. This is not magic, but the result of long and persistent training of the mind. What is astonishing is that from a slave, Epictetus became a teacher of the free, not only because his intellect shone brightly, but because he demonstrated that anyone can attain true freedom if they know how to choose their response. He needed no throne, no wealth, yet he possessed something that even emperors covet: inner tranquility. This is why, across thousands of years, the name Epictetus endures, and his teachings continue to be passed down. He did not merely speak of philosophy, he lived it. And his life itself is a resounding testament to the truth that real power lies in how we choose to respond. Perhaps the deepest lesson that Epictetus wished to convey to humanity is the truth that our response is the one thing no one can take away from us. A person may lose their homeland, their job, their possessions, yet if they retain the ability to choose their response, they remain free. It is like a flame in the darkness. The night may cover the sky entirely, but with a single breath upon a small flame, light can still shine. The response is that flame. And if we learn to nurture it, even in the darkest moments, we can still find a light uniquely our own. In modern life, the value of this philosophy becomes evident in even the smallest experiences. An employee criticized by a superior may react with bitterness, causing their work to suffer further. Yet the same employee, if they respond with a spirit of learning, turns that critique into a springboard for growth. A mother may respond to her child's mistake with anger, causing the child to withdraw. But if she responds with love and guidance, that mistake becomes an opportunity for the child to grow. These small responses, repeated day after day, shape the contours of an entire life. Epictetus also reminds us that response is not merely defense, it is creation. When we choose wisely, we are crafting a new reality. A community may react to injustice with violence and reap long-lasting resentment. Yet, if it responds with wisdom and solidarity, it can cultivate justice and peace. An individual may respond to failure with despair and fall, but if he responds with hope, that failure becomes the starting point of a new journey. In this way, our responses do not merely shape our emotions, they shape the world around us. One of the most striking aspects of Epictetus's philosophy is its simplicity. He does not speak of distant, abstract concepts, but centers on a familiar truth. You can choose your response. It is this simplicity that has allowed his teachings to endure for thousands of years. Anyone can apply it, whether rich or poor, learned or humble. A laborer can remain calm in hardship. A student can choose patience in failure. A soldier can maintain dignity even in the face of death. This simple yet eternal truth elevated Epictetus from the status of a slave to a teacher of humanity. Looking back, we see that Epictetus never promised an easy path. He did not say that we can avoid suffering, nor did he claim we would always triumph. but he offered something more precious, a compass to navigate the storms. That compass is the ability to choose our response. When we keep our mind calm, we are no longer swept away by the waves. When we maintain steadfastness, we can continue walking even through the night. And when we hold on to compassion, we can transform hatred into forgiveness. This is the power that has made Epictetus a timeless symbol, a man who needed no authority, yet possessed the secret of true freedom. What makes Epictetus's thought truly great is that he did not merely speak of philosophy, he lived it. The student sitting before him did not just hear teachings, but witnessed a living example. A slave who had endured suffering, yet radiated spiritual freedom, commanding the respect of anyone in his presence. His life became a proof that no circumstance can imprison the mind if one knows how to choose the right response. That is why his philosophy has the power to touch even the hardest hearts, for it is not empty theory, but truth demonstrated through life itself. In today's society, we can see the shadow of Epictetus in countless ordinary people. A poor father who consistently chooses to respond with sacrifice to raise his children well. A mother battling illness who responds with love, turning her condition into an opportunity to teach her children to cherish life. An unemployed worker who responds with resilience, rising to seek new opportunities instead of giving in to despair. They bear no philosopher's name, yet they live the spirit of Stoicism. And as Epictetus taught, they are living proof that true power lies in the way we respond. Response shapes not only the individual, but also the culture and history of entire nations. When a community faces a natural disaster, responding with unity can save thousands of lives. When a country confronts foreign invasion, responding with courage can write heroic chapters in history. When a society encounters injustice, responding with wisdom and compassion can alter the fate of generations. Epictetus gave humanity a key, and if we know how to use it, we can unlock the door to entirely different futures. There is a truth often overlooked. Our responses reveal our core values. You may claim to be brave, but only when facing danger and responding with steadfastness do you truly demonstrate courage. You may claim to be kind, but only when insulted and choosing to respond with forgiveness do you truly demonstrate benevolence. Response is where words become reality, where ideals become action. In every reaction, we reveal to the world who we truly are. And this is why Epictetus insisted, let your response be the evidence of your soul. As we practice the ability to choose our responses, life begins to feel lighter. We are no longer governed by external circumstances, no longer passive before the tides of events. Instead, we become active, steering the ship of our destiny. Storms still come, tempests still rise, but we do not tremble, for we know we have the power to choose how to face them. And in mastering ourselves, we discover a simple truth that Epictetus lived by. Freedom is not the liberty to do whatever we wish, but the wisdom to choose the right response in every situation. This is the truest, most enduring freedom, a freedom that no one can ever take away. As we enter the final chapters of life, the greatest question is no longer how much wealth or fame we have accumulated, but how we have lived in the face of life's upheavals. If each day we respond with resentment, we leave behind a heavy life. But if each day we respond with equanimity and love, even in passing, we leave a radiant legacy in the hearts of others. Epictetus lived in this way, a life not rich in possessions, not endowed with power, yet leaving a reverence that stretches across centuries. He reminds us that the greatest legacy does not reside in what we accumulate, but in how we choose to respond to life. The modern world is in constant flux, and people today may face even greater pressures than in Epictetus's time. Yet precisely for this reason, his philosophy is more necessary than ever. We cannot stop the storms of information. We cannot escape injustice, and we cannot guarantee that the future will always go as we wish. But we can choose to respond with awareness. We can choose not to be controlled by fear. We can choose to maintain compassion in a society that can sometimes feel cold. And if enough people choose to respond in this way, the world can become brighter, safer, and more humane. The beauty of Epictetus's philosophy is that it does not demand we change the entire world, only ourselves. Each time we choose a wise response, we create a small universe of peace. This universe radiates to family, friends, and community, gradually transforming into collective strength. From the quiet choices of individuals, humanity rises. Like drops forming an ocean, each person's response contributes to the flow of history. And if we follow Epictetus's example, we help build a cleaner, purer ocean for future generations. Finally, Epictetus teaches that death is not an enemy. It is merely an event, like any other, and we still have the power to choose our response. If we respond with fear, it becomes a haunting specter. If we respond with serenity, it becomes a reminder of the value of the present. When we recognize that each day could be our last, we live more fully, love more deeply, and forgive more easily. Epictetus passed through life with this mindset, and so death could not take his freedom. It only allowed the light of his philosophy to shine further, brighter, and endure longer. And so, the eternal lesson of Epictetus resounds to us today. True power does not lie in changing the world, but in changing how we respond to it. The past may be filled with suffering. The future may be uncertain. Yet in this very moment, we have the choice. Choose steadfastness instead of weakness. Choose serenity instead of anger. Choose love instead of hatred. Each choice, accumulated over the years, transforms an ordinary life into an extraordinary journey. And this is the immortal legacy of Epictetus, a reminder that true freedom resides within our hearts, in every response we decide to take.